and welcome to my channel. My name is Randomize and this is BioShock of the BioShock collection on PlayStation 4, and I thought I'd use its recent 10-year anniversary as an excuse to put this game back onto this channel. I love the BioShock series, all three games. I am seemingly one of the few people who actually really likes BioShock 2. So I love all three games. Had to get the, had to obviously get the new collection, new, it's been out for a while, obviously, but had to get the collection eventually, and I thought, yeah, we should be able to show you this game. I want to very much enjoy going back through this game as well, and of course, through the various sort of, variations of playthroughs that we have on my channel, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using a Let's Challenge here on BioShock. So we've previously done Let's Challenge on the Uncharted series, also on some Ratchet and Clank games. So now we get to test it out on BioShock, which is really going to be really cool. So for those of you who haven't been on my channel before, the Let's Challenge format works in that I start off on 0 lives, and for every trophy that I get during my playthrough of the game, I gain a life. But for every time I die, I lose a life, and the aim is to get to the end of the game with some lives intact, without having gone down to 0 lives. And BioShock should be interesting. It has quite a large number of trophies, if I remember correctly, which should be very helpful to us, but on the harder difficulties, it can be pretty brutal, and it's one of these games where you can die very quickly, which means that you've got to sort of always be on your toes, and you can't sort of lose sight of where you are in the whole scheme of things, as it were. So we're going to be able to start the game here. We're going to obviously, so this is all part of the collection. You're actually going to get some director's commentary, which we haven't unlocked yet, I believe. You get a museum of sort of unused character models and stuff like that. Also some information about the development of the game and the inspiration for when they first decided to go with the Art Deco style and everything else that makes BioShock, that really inspired Rapture as a city. And then there's also additional content, which is the DLC packs, some sort of minor DLC packs, on top of everything else, which is really cool. I do love the sort of the random piano notes that you get just by selecting between the various options in the menu. So, if we just quickly, I'm sure we'll be able to choose. We should put. We'll just put subtitles on for the moment. The subtitles on. Quest arrow. Disable fighter chambers. So essentially, the way the Vita chambers work is that I guess I'll show you once we get into the game. Whether I turn it off or on is another matter. The thing is that you get trophies for completing the game without having Vita chambers on. Without using Vita chambers. The problem without using them is that if I was to die, for example, then the game would take me back to when I last saved, and that could be an entire episode's worth of content completely removed. So I think we won't disable Vita chambers. And what we will instead do, we'll just make sure that the brightness is about right. Select, and okay, so the difficulties here, so we got obviously easy, medium, hard, and then survival was actually a difficulty that was added later on when BioShock was eventually ported to PlayStation 3. So the initial versions on Xbox and PC did not have a survivor mode, so survival was added later. Now, because I feel like what's important with these Let's Challenges is actually having some degree of consistency between the games. So it's important for me to say that BioShock 2, for example, does not have a survivor mode, and in BioShock Infinite, the hardest difficulty there is called 1999 mode, but that was only unlocked in the original, that is. I don't know about on this collection. But in the original BioShock Infinite, 1999 mode was only unlocked once you defeated the game. You'd already completed the game, and so by my normal Let's Challenge rules of the hardest difficulty available from the start, I would play that game on hard. And so for consistency, and have every game me playing through on hard, we're going to actually do this Let's Challenge on hard, as opposed to Survivor. It does make it slightly easier, but I can't really say it's good. I don't remember. It's been quite a long time since I've actually done a story mode playthrough of BioShock, so we'll see what happens. With Vita Chambers on, it might be pretty simple, but you know, we've sort of been very much up and down with our success rates with these Let's Challenges.
They told me, son, you're special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
So here we have it. The first cutscene there, we end up on this massive plane crash. what a way to open a game, I think, in many ways. You know, you sort of just barely surviving a massive plane crash, and then everything, you know, just being on fire. The tail of the plane just slowly sinking into the water. I think in the original you could actually just stand at the top there on the by the lighthouse, and you could just watch the plane. You could just watch the flames die away as the ocean eventually wins that battle, and you could just watch the tail of the plane slowly sink beneath the waves. It's such an effective way of starting the game as well, and you just have this very ominous looking lighthouse. So there you have it. So what do we do? Well, what can we do? Just gotta move forwards. Of course the door shuts behind you. Here we have a propaganda, just as propaganda. No gods or kings, only man. It does actually say something. A parasite asks. It says, I wonder where the other half of that banner is, but evidently it's missing. Anyway, so we will now start to make our way down. Sort of three big tenets of what they want. They have science, we have industry, and we have art as the three big important things. Is that there? No, just Rapture signal. And now we can take the bathysphere down.
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture. A city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small. And with the sweat of your brow, Rapture can become your city as well.
What an opening! What a first view of that city. If it didn't take your breath away when you first played the game, if you haven't played the game, you know, just see that. It's, you know, this was what, 10 years ago. It was so captivating, just seeing this huge underwater city. It was amazing. Such a great opening scene, and obviously you get introduced to Ryan and all of his sort of his beliefs and stuff like that. Okay, so unfortunately we didn't seem to put on those subtitles, which I do usually have on. The subtitles there would have told you sort of essentially if you couldn't quite hear, but Atlas essentially knows that there's a bathysphere coming down. He sent someone to collect you. That someone is then attacked there by that rather monstrous looking splicer. So the splicer, you know, sort of deformed, with hooks for hands, who just brutally murdered a guy who's somewhat disappeared. But the way they, I love the way the bathysphere, you know, gets damaged as you're inside and you just can't do anything about it. But
we're gonna need to draw her out of hiding, but you're gonna have to trust me.
Do you see the beautiful city just throughout? I mean, imagine if you came here when, you know, obviously everything wasn't completely gone to hell. Imagine if you could just come to this city and this is the first thing you see having docked in with the bathysphere. It'd be amazing. Anyway, so this is a Vita Chamber. The Vita Chambers sort of work as you can see, if you're killed, you'll be revived, live and hold by the last Vita Chamber you passed. You'll also have some Adam and some Eve, which we'll talk, some health and some Eve, which we'll talk about later. So yeah, the main reason that we're when using Vita Chambers is because I don't want to have to redo loads and loads of sort of a large section because I've died. If you don't use Vita Chambers, it will only be when you last saved, and knowing me, I will fail to save at some important point and lose like 3 hours worth of progress. So let's not do that, and let's keep going. So you can see Ryan doesn't own us, Rapture's dead. We're not your property. Let it end. Let us ascend. So it looks like there's obviously being a huge or a campaign to actually allow people to leave Rapture itself. And then you sort of have that creepy splicer again, sort of making comments towards us. Where's she gone?
Just a bit border. How do you like that, mister? Now, would you kindly find a crowbar or something? Bloody splicer sealed Johnny in before they... Goddamn splicers.
So, there's your first introduction to the security system. We see these cameras that come around. If they're green, that means that they are... Usually it means that they're hacked, but in this case it just means that they won't alert to us. You know, we're not an alert to them. And if you are if the security system is alerted, then you have these security bots that fly around and will attack those who have sort of caused the disturbance. So, you can see another splicer up there. You want to just avoid the
Report me, you fuck!
You can see they still do a fair bit of health. Rapture, one man's vision, mankind's salvation. You can tell that Ryan might have had a fair few sort of beliefs about himself. But there's our first example of a splicer, our first thuggish splicer. You can see sort of at the back, you know, you have to sort of bludgeon them with the wrench. You can see that they take a fair amount of fair number of hits. We can see the various loot. So food gives you health. Various drinks will also help you out. You can see we've got 2 bars at the top there. The red one is obviously our health. The blue one is about to become very important to us. We're just going to a lot of this game is sort of just going everywhere and scrounging as much as you can from all of the sort of various little containers and stuff like that. Just finding everything that you can. But we will most certainly deal with the Gatherer's Garden, if you heard the sort of quite chilling, almost, little chant from the, from this vendor, just being like, not if you don't visit the Gatherer's Garden, you aren't. So, Gatherer's Garden, genetic, what did that say? Genetic modifications, and we have a free ElectroBolt.
This little fish looks like he just had his cherry popped. Wonder if he's still got some Adam on him. Let's bug. Weak. You're a weak chopper. This little fish ain't worth towing it with no big daddy. Yellow always have been. You'll be no better off with a metal daddy, little fish. See you floating right.
Mr. Bubbles? It's an angel. I can see light coming from his belly. Wait a minute. He's still breathing. It's all right. I know he'll be an angel soon.
You all right, Boyle? First time plasma's a real kick from a mule. But there's nothing like a fistful of lightning now, is there?
Tell me that isn't. Oh, it's such a good start to a game. Like, you've had all of this, and then you randomly decide, let's just inject ourselves with this suspicious-looking needle, and then suddenly we can now fire electricity from our hand. It's amazing. And then, you know, that scene obviously introduces the fact that, you know, these splicers, this concept of Adam, as something that the splicers want, and we'll obviously have more and more of that through this opening little chapter. But also we meet the Little Sisters and the Big Daddies, of course, two major parts of this. So ElectroBolt's pretty a pretty useful plasmid. Has lots of different uses to it, which makes it particularly, you know, so something that you keep throughout the game. And it's an obvious choice for the one that you pick first. So if we just head down here, some splicers are going to come up behind us, I think. So you can see you can gain heat, you can gain health, but lose Eve if you actually drink. Whereas if you whereas if you smoke, you'll specifically you'll lose health but gain Eve.
I found it!
So the 1-2 punch that obviously Atlas mentions there is very useful. Splicers take an enormous. I don't quite know what the multiplier is. It might be like 5, I think. They take a lot more damage if you hit them with ElectroBolt and then melee them.
How's that? I didn't mean to hurt anyone! I was...
So some of the things that the higher difficulties entail through this game is that becomes more what is that saying? Arcadia Merlo, more health. Essentially, the plasmids use up more and more of your Eve. So the Eve is the Eve hypos that we're picking up is the sort of the batteries almost for your plasmids. If you want to be able to use your plasmids, you need Eve, and they each use up a different amount of Eve.
I can control myself! I can! You want some of this?
Oh, we actually get Toaster in the tub. So that is a trophy. We just got a trophy there, and that's because we shocked this guy when he was in water. So the first time you do that to any enemy, you'll get a trophy for using ElectroBolt on an enemy when they're in water. We actually get an introduction to that specific sort of concept later on, but I guess we did it there because this is obviously there's some water there. So yeah, so you constantly want to obviously be picking up Eve hypos, you want obviously health kits being, you know, particularly obvious.
Listen, I've got a family. I need to get them out of here. But the splicers have cut me off from them. If you can reach them in Neptune's bounty, then maybe, just maybe, I know you must feel like the unluckiest man in the world right now, but you're the only hope I'll ever see my wife and child again. Go to Neptune's bounty. Find my family, please.
So we see another Vita chamber. And another first aid kit and a pet bar, which I think gives you both health and Eve. But I might be wrong there, it might just be health. So attacks from behind also will do
Plasma's changed everything.
more damage.
They destroyed our bodies, our minds. We couldn't handle it. Best friends butchering one another. Babies strangled in cribs. The whole city went to hell.
Okay, so we can flip between the wrench and the revolver. Lovely. And so we have it here, the Kashmir restaurant and sort of the Rapture Masquerade Ball of 1959. So New Year, essentially. So much of this game which is sort of like you just hear like a splicer maybe having a conversation out of sight, and you just makes you very sort of aware of, you know, where they could be. So anyway, we want to head down here actually.
Charlie, where you going?
So she's our first leadhead splicer. By that means she actually has a weapon, in this case a pistol. The leadhead splicers are some of the more sort of, you sort of see a lot of leadheads, and yeah, they're pretty much the most ubiquitous enemy. You see them throughout the game. We can start collecting some dollars, which will actually obviously allow us to buy health kits and e-hypos, but also ammo as well, which is obviously particularly useful. So we need to restart our stuff.
If you spot a splicer in the water, hit him with the ElectroBolt.
So it does a huge amount of damage, the ElectroBolt, which is certainly why you... so certainly to enemies in the water, that is. And that is the introduction to, you know, for that trophy being Toaster in the tub. We can search some corpses down here. And we'll hit our first... audio diary, or... can't remember... audio logs around this area too, just here, which we'll listen to.
Another New Year's, another night alone. I'm out and you're stuck in Festus, working. Imagine my surprise. Oh, I guess I'll have another drink. Here's a toast to Diane McClintock, silliest girl in Rapture. Silly enough to fall in love with Andrew Ryan. Silly. What happened? I'm bleeding. Oh God. What's happening?
So one of the useful things you can see there about ElectroBolt. So one, you can use it obviously on enemies in water to hit them with a large amount of damage. If you use it on an enemy, it stuns them. Doesn't do any damage, but it stuns them, and also makes them bolt upright, which means they're pretty easy to snipe a headshot off. And there's a lot of other like useful. There are some other useful uses to ElectroBolt. We'll see later. We also see our first ghost. They sort of appear throughout, loosely throughout the game. They're not particularly common throughout a lot of things. As you can see, we actually have maxed out our health kits. You can hold up to 9 health kits and 9 e-hypos as we get our second audio diary.
Hey Brenda, you care to tell me why you've had a hole in the wall the size of Plymouth Rock coming out of your crapper going on 3 weeks now? Nah, I ain't saying I'm Shakespeare. I'm trying to run a respectable theater. I got working folk coming in from Port Neptune trying to catch a little diversion. And all I can think about is the stink coming out of your shitter. Get it fixed.
Okay. So this is, you know, some of the really nice... I mean, I love this style of sort of... the way it opens up the story. It opens up this sort of history of Rapture through finding these messages sent by, you know, the denizens of Rapture from the past, and sort of piecing together things. You know, in much the same way, you know, you arrive, everything's already happened in many ways, and you're sort of like a detective finding out everything that's gone on, you know, to cause this city to devolve into such a state. But yeah, I know. I mean, it's obviously a story structure which has its critics, and I appreciate that. You know, it does seem a little weird to have all of these characters just sort of, you know, detailing their thoughts down in these videos for, you know, who knows, for who know what to find out. But I find it, I still find it really, I find it really engaging, and like people like, especially when you've got characters like Diane McClintock, who have multiple audio logs, so you actually see that they have, you know, they take part in multiple sort of, yeah, you can almost see their story as they go through the game, as they go through Rapture as well.
Would you kindly lower that weapon for a minute? You think that's a child down there? Don't be fooled. She's a little sister now. Somebody went and turned a sweet baby girl into a monster. Whatever you thought about right and wrong on the surface, well, that don't count for much down in Rapture. Those little sisters, they carry Adam, the genetic material that keeps the wheels of Rapture turning. Everybody wants it, everybody needs it.
So there we have it, our introduction to the Little Sisters, and just like that, we're also going to be able to see I love that. What an introduction to an enemy type is the Big Daddy. That is beautifully done. And also, it shows you a lot of things. You know, it shows you that the splicers are looking for the Little Sisters. You know, they want the Adam from the Little Sisters, so that if you see, you know, so you, and later on throughout the game, we actually see cases where splicers or groups of splicers are attacking Big Daddies and stuff like that in order to gain access to Little Sisters. Which I think is really a really nice touch, because it makes sense. It makes complete sense within the sort of the lore of the game. Get a cream-filled cake.
Hang her on.
Okay. Don't like missing, obviously. It costs quite a lot of Eve, obviously, if you're missing shots like that. So you do definitely, on these higher difficulties, everything does matter, and you do want to be as accurate as possible. There's nothing back here, so we'll continue forwards and go into the final section of this opening sort of chapter. It's called Welcome to Rapture. Importantly, this is an area which you cannot return to, and because there are trophies for like getting all the audio logs and stuff, those audio logs back there are collectibles that you cannot collect unless you're in this chapter. So if you've missed them, you definitely want to collect them now. You can't go back and unfortunately you won't be able to return to this area and collect them once we leave. So this last section, what's going to happen is as we pop down here, obviously we want to head towards Neptune's Bounty, which is this way, but if we do so, our path is going to get blocked. And you want to stay away. There is a turret that's going to appear there, and that's a flame turret. Does a lot of damage to you over time, so just be aware. We're going to sort of take a defensive position here, because we're going to get a lot of splicers drop down from the top, and we can zap them with the ElectroBolt, which is really useful. But you want to keep an eye on both of the bathrooms, so there's one round there and one just there. You want to keep an eye on both of those, because enemies will come down from there as well. We just got to wait for the... Okay, there we go, lovely. Whoops. Not mean to do that, but... There might be a trophy for actually killing a certain number of enemies when drunk. I know there is one in, Infinite. Not sure there is here. So obviously that is the way forwards through to medical. We will not do that quite yet. We have some other things that we can search. I'm pretty sure there are some health kits around this area, so you definitely want to obviously try and max out your health kits. We're also just going to search for any money, stuff like that. Bandages are obviously just, give you small increments to your health, help patch you up. And then, I think that's everything here, so we will make our way on through here, and now we just want to run, pretty much.
Oh, Christ! You're trapped! Gonna try to override the exit from here!
So tell me, friend, which one of the bitches said to you? The KGB wolf or the CIA jackal? Here's the news. Rapture isn't some sunken ship for you to plunder. And Andrew Ryan isn't a giddy socialite who can be slapped around by government muscle. And with that, farewell, or Baslovania, Jack.
So there we have it, that lovely little cutscene just there as we see sort of Andrew Ryan, a proper introduction, I guess, to him and how he views these sort of intruders, I guess, to Rapture, and obviously main introduction to all the splicers and stuff like that. So there we go. So that is the first area done. That is Welcome to Rapture. We should get a trophy for that, so that should take us up to 2 lives, which is a nice start. It should do. We will just... There we go. Yep, so we get a trophy for a completed welcome, and we are going to call this episode to an end here. So this is the end of the first episode. In the next episode, we're going to probably try and do, say, maybe the first half of the medical pavilion. I'm not sure how long each of these episodes is going to be, but we'll try and do each area in 2 episodes. If we can do that, that would be pretty awesome. But I hope you have enjoyed this episode of my Let's Challenge of BioShock, and I hope you will join me on the next.